ADHD and it's become like a sort of trending euphemism. It does not help because it takes away the fact that it is a real disorder.
Susannah Constantine.
A TV presenter, author, podcaster, and designer.
Notorious for her role on Trinny and Susannah.
She's here today with her daughter.
Her ADHD is very external. Her younger sister is more like me and she'll internalize everything.
I sort of told mum and dad, they kind of brushed it off. Sitting down and speaking about it, it was such a relief almost just to have that diagnosis. Like, I'm not going crazy.
If you're not channeling that hyperactivity in a positive direction, it can manifest into anxiety. How does anxiety manifest in you?
I wake up full of fear every morning. My brain will find something to be anxious about.
You're addicted to the anxiety.
I'm addicted to the anxiety.
What would you never change about Susannah, your mum?
I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God, I actually have, don't.
This episode is dedicated to anyone who has a chaotic handbag but also knows exactly what's in there. This sponsored ad was agreed to be 90 seconds long, but because I know most of you have ADHD, I negotiated it down to 89 seconds. I challenge you to test your ADHD by seeing if you can sit still for 1 minute 30 seconds while I tell you about our sponsor, Tiimo app. If I can sit down and record take after take of this message for 2 hours, then I'm sure you can listen to 90 seconds. So here's a short word from our sponsor. Tiimo app is a perfectly tailored app that I use daily, and maybe it's worth you giving it a try to see how it might improve organising your life too. Running a podcast is actually a lot harder than you might think, and juggling all of the moving parts would be near impossible if it weren't for Tiimo app. How? Well, Tiimo is designed specifically to hack the neurodivergent brain, a brain that might struggle with time agnosia, object permanence, memory cognitive load, task initiation, anxiety, or procrastination. All things I'm extremely guilty of too. And how on earth does it help you, Alex? I hear you scream impatiently at your computer or phone screens. Well, the award-winning Tiimo app is the perfect life-hacking tool to help your time management and kick you up the bum when you need it most. If you want to stay ahead of the competition, then the visual planning Tiimo app is specifically designed to help your structuring, organising, focusing, and goal setting. It has a visual timer, providing a tangible and visual representation of time to help users pace themselves so you never miss a deadline ever again. It also has an efficient lock screen reminder service to alert those of you who are very out of sight, out of mind with your chores and afraid you might forget them. It brilliantly centres all of your tasks in one place across devices, both on a web and mobile apps, to streamline your overflowing schedules and make them much more digestible and a lot less intimidating. And for those who find big tasks too overwhelming to even start, Tiimo breaks them down into more manageable subtasks to get the ball rolling. In fact, this app helps me so much that it actually reminded me to record this message to advertise the app. Give it a go. Why not? It might just help. Anyway, back to the episode. Susannah Esme, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
It's a very special, exciting day in the ADHD Chatter Studio. It's the first time we've had a mother and daughter combo on.
Woo.
Just to set the dynamic, who's got ADHD?
I know. I'm the one who's got ADHD. Maybe I get it from you, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Esme's the one who's been diagnosed.
Okay, well, it sounds like we've got a lot of ground to cover.
I think we have. It's going to be very interesting
Lots of
and maybe
umming and ahhing.
enlightening.
I ask all my guests to tell me what item most represents ADHD in their life. So Esme, this one's for you. Your
Yeah.
item is under this cloth. I'm going to reveal it
Go
now.
on.
Da, da, da.
A Rubik's Cube. We will talk about that later on.
Yeah.
But first, question for Susannah to start with. You don't have a formal diagnosis, but when was your first memory of feeling different?
I don't think I've ever felt different, but I've always felt isolated. I've always felt that I only sort of have got myself to rely on. It probably stems from the fact that my mum was bipolar and had multiple suicide attempts. And so the consequence of that as a child was waking up every morning and not knowing how she was going to be, whether she was going to be, possibly dead, whether she was going to be on a high or a low. And so within that moment of waking up in the morning, it's like almost like time would stand still. And in that moment, I'd only have myself to be able to go forward with the day because I didn't know if my mother was going to be there.
Do you think being exposed to someone in that position and being fearful of how their day might turn out, you're hypervigilant to other people's emotions?
Yeah, I think it's definitely made me more empathetic. But also it's like I kind of choose to look at it in a positive way because it has enabled me to live in the present completely, because that's all I ever had as a child was that moment, which was the unknowing. But it's also given me a lack of responsibility, a lack of accountability, because I never ever look back and I never really look forward because I don't want to have that feeling of responsibility. So on the one hand, yes, I felt isolated, but that's my normal way of thinking. So I hate being tied down by anything.
Mm. And Esme,
Yeah.
when was your first memory of feeling different? And as a part two to that question, when was the first time you realised your mum might be different to other mums?
Probably it would be at school, I reckon. And maybe around my siblings as well, because obviously Cece, my young sister's been diagnosed, but I guess mine is very sort of, it's very internal, but it's also very external. Like it can be quite obvious. So I guess, I'm always sort of bloody all over the place. And, when I'm at home, I can be my true like self. So I think even then on the exterior, it's even more, present, like obvious. So yeah, one at home. But then obviously in school situations, like in class, being put on like report cards and like I couldn't understand why. I used to work so hard. This is so frustrating. I'm not going to say a bad word, but worked really, really hard. And then I'd always seem to like not get the good grades. And like, I just never understood why. Like, what was the other question?
Do you have any memories of realisations or thinking that your mum was different to other mothers?
Only that you're a very cool mum, in my opinion. I don't think you were different. I just think I don't know if I'm allowed to speak about your alcoholism.
Yeah, no, of course you can.
Maybe that obviously had an impact. But that wasn't like, I never like judged you against other mums or thought that you were like different. So I don't think I have a, definitive answer to that question, annoyingly.
I think that's quite interesting because it's like you say, Esme says, the way it presents, her ADHD presents itself is very external and she can be fucking annoying. It's like this sort of ferret running around, this crazy ferret, and it's like, oh my God. Whereas Cece, her younger sister, is more like me and she'll internalize everything. So even though, I was drinking alcoholically for a lot of Esme's childhood, I was able to hide that. I was highly functioning whilst I was drinking. So the fact that you say you didn't notice anything means, I was a successful alcoholic. No one bloody well knew about it. So it's interesting you say that.
The alcoholism, how bad did that get? Was there a rock bottom moment there for you?
There was a rock bottom moment. I mean, like I said, I was, high functioning at the same time. But because of that, it was a very it took a lot of energy to try and appear that everything was okay, especially for my children. I was emotionally addicted, and then it became a habit. But I drink maybe a bottle every single night without fail. And if we'd been to a party or something, I'd just drink and drink and drink until almost blackout. And even if I felt really hungover the next day, I'd still drink that evening. But my rock bottom came when I drank everyone was drinking. And we had our Australian cousins there. You know, Australians have a great reputation of partying and having a fantastic time. And I wasn't drinking anymore, but because my alcohol sponge was so kind of saturated, I blacked out, fell over on concrete, broke 2 transverse processes in my back and pissed myself in front of...
I don't remember that.
I don't think it was my husband's brother and him saw it.
I'm for the therapist.
And, that was my rock bottom. Yeah, it was a painful one. You know, it was emotionally, physically, and the shame and the guilt and la la la. So yeah, that was when I realised I needed help.
What do you think it is that keeps you sober now?
AA. You know, AA. And you know, when I made the decision that I had to stop drinking. Initially, I did it for my family because I thought I can't put, you know, my children and my husband through this anymore. But then I got to realise that it was something I had to do for myself, because there's that saying, it's like, you know, if you're in an aeroplane, the air stewardess will say, and take down the oxygen mask and put it on yourself first, and then you can help others. And it's the same with alcohol. So if I was going to be any use, you know, if I really love my family, which I do, obviously, and I was going to be there for them, then I had to stop drinking. I had to help myself first.
Addiction, alcoholism comes up time and time again in this podcast. And I first heard those 4 letters, ADHD, in an AA meeting. And we see often there's a genetic component at play here. Is it on your mind to be aware of, to see that behaviour in your daughters?
Yeah, it is. And we've had that. I've had that conversation with all my children, and just saying, look, you know, alcoholism is a genetic disorder. It's a mental disorder. It's, you know, drinking too much is a symptom, and you know, you might have the same gene, and just be aware. And if you're worried, I've been through it. I've got the medal, you know, come to me.
Esme, when did you get diagnosed with ADHD?
I think it was just when I started school. When did I start school?
No, it's when you left school, wasn't it? Was it your A levels? Was it just before your or GCSEs?
It might have been just before my A levels, actually. I think, and well, I remember it so vividly because I had to go. I basically just took myself, and this is nothing against anyone in our family.
You must say
when I sort of told mum and dad and blah blah, and they're like, yeah, they kind of brushed it off, like maybe as you would back then, because you know it wasn't discussed and no one really thought it was a thing. So I was like, okay, fine. Like, I wasn't getting anywhere with them, so I basically called up a psychiatrist, well, your doctor, I think. I was like, right, I'm taking this. Put the number, called them up, and they're basically like, within the first 10 minutes, they kind of knew. And I was like, okay, so I've got a potential diagnosis, and then I need to go see a psychiatrist, who then confirmed it. And I remember I didn't want to go on my own by myself because I was so scared. I was so anxious and so nervous that like I was going to have this huge thing, or I could have something else, you know. So my cousin Arthur came with me, which was really sweet. And I remember going in and sitting down and speaking about it. And it was such a relief almost just to have like that diagnosis. Like, I'm not going crazy. I'm not someone who has some problem with my brain and I can't concentrate and I can't be in like spaces and things like that and getting really overstimulated, blah, blah, blah. Like, it is a thing, and it's not just me thinking, oh my God, there's something wrong with you, basically. So that was a huge relief. But I think because I was quite young, what came next was like, what do I do now? Like, sort of, because there is that period between when you are diagnosed and then, like, do you take meds? Do you have therapy? Do you have is it CBT? Like, there's so many different routes. And I think that the interim part is very difficult because you're sort of treading water. Like, what do I go for? And it is trial and error. Like, I started on Ritalin, then I went to Elvance. Now I'm on Amphexxa because of the shortage. So I've, you know, tried it all basically. But that was when. But I really went on a tangent now, but that's when I got diagnosed. Yeah.
Susannah, when Esme got diagnosed, what did you think about ADHD sort of before that moment?
Not very much. to be honest. Like Esme said, it was obviously I was worried for her emotionally and the fact that she was upset, but the fact that she might have a disorder of some kind, like Esme said, I brushed it aside. It was like, it doesn't matter kind of thing. And I know I obviously knew she'd struggled at school, and then when she told me, like Esme, it was a bit of a relief. But if I'm really honest, it was a relief because it wasn't going to have to be my responsibility to deal with it. There were people, experts there, who could help her far better than I could, and which then, as a parent, I think it allows me to be the safety net as opposed to the diagnostic. So it's kind of very what's that word? Compartmentalized. And that's how I see it. And I didn't think, oh my God, no, she's got ADHD. It was just like, okay, she's got ADHD. It explains a lot. That's why she's so creative. That's why I just thought of all the good things about Esme more than the negative things, and then and also relief for her rather than for myself.
But it is good to have that degree of separation in terms of how you were saying about, you're the emotional support, whereas rather than being the diagnostic support, because obviously there are experts who do, not that you don't know what you're talking about.
No, but I
wouldn't go to my
that.
psychiatrist who subscribes me medication and then make sure I'm in check and stuff. I wouldn't go to her and start crying about X, Y, and Z. Like, you're very good in that respect about dealing with it. Then obviously I have a therapist who's just that next level.
Yeah.
She's like knows me down to a T, and don't know what I would do without her. But I like that degree of separation because
I think we both. I think you're the kind of the sort of psychiatric help you have is as important as the maternal support.
Yeah,
and it's good. Like you say, it is good having that separation between the two.
What do you think your experience with ADHD has been like as you've grown with it? How do you think it shows up in your life? Honestly,
I think it's just been chaos, to be completely honest. Like, yes, there are honestly so many positives about ADHD. I can go for the negatives and the positives. The positives are, I can be extremely creative. When I'm in something that I love and I'm passionate about, I can work for hours. I can put my heart and soul and everything into it and work my ass off, basically, and things like that. But again, on the contrary, if I'm in, we're talking work, if I'm in a space where it's not my thing, or it's not stimulating enough, then I find obviously very hard to feel motivated, and it's not good for self-esteem. And I feel like I'm not I don't know how to put it. I just feel very low in myself because I'm not working to my full potential kind of thing. But again, I think when I say chaos, I just mean as I've gone from school to uni to actual a real life, they're three completely different stages of your life, and you have to learn how to deal with ADHD in those three different bits. And they're so different. School routine, it's a lot easier to deal with. Uni less so, because you're having to start making your own choices. You actually have to turn up to things, but you're not told to. You have to wake up in the morning and remember to eat food, go to the shops and actually pick out things in the shops. And I bloody hate going to the shops. I cannot for the life of me do it. Just putting a list together is too hard. And then in life, just feeling good enough, when you're trying to find a job, and it's just, people just think I'm being lazy, but there's some things that I am asked to do and I just can't do them. It will take me 3 hours to get out of bed sometimes. Not because I'm lazy or depressed, it's just, I just can't do it. And that is just, it's chaos. It's I'm all over the place.
Well, we see it time and time again, people with ADHD, they know they're capable of doing stuff, but because of this overwhelm, anxiety, overstimulation, they are often just paralyzed. They're unable to take any action, and that can
so
lead to
annoying.
A lot of, shame.
Yeah.
Guilt. Do you feel any shame and guilt over your ADHD?
Yeah, 100%. I feel shame and guilt, definitely. Guilty because I know what I should be doing. And I put so much pressure on myself, maybe for the things I should be doing, like, oh, I should be going out and getting a job, should be whatever. And like that does make me feel guilty. And I'm like, oh, I also feel guilty because my parents have brought me up in such, I've gone to school, gone to uni, I've been very, privileged in that sense. So I feel like yes, I owe it to myself, but I also feel so bad that I'm letting people down. And I constantly feel like I'm going to let people down, And I think that is another big thing with ADHD is like when you're dependent on other people, it's if someone's depending on me to do something, it's often easier to do, but I feel like it's a lot easier to let people down. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, it is. There's a lot of, I feel a bit guilty a lot of the time.
Yeah, that accountability piece is very relatable. I think when someone is counting on you, that does motivate often you to sort of kick you into action and do the task. How do you feel, Susannah, when you see Esme in distress over something that's not necessarily her fault?
Well, you're never happier than your unhappiest child. So, it's. I think probably out of all my children, that Es and I are the most similar. So there is that kind of, we can fight like hell, but also I very much feel what she's feeling. And I think vice versa, she's very tuned in. I don't have to say anything. She knows exactly why I'm being a bitch, and then we'll, come back and make it even worse. But it's really hard. It's because I understand that she is powerless, that I can't help, that no one can help. And it's kind of, I can imagine for you how frustrating that is. And, it's difficult to see your child feel that she's letting other people down, especially as you're 23 years old. It's young to have those feelings of the need for accountability and putting pressure on yourself. It's like, surely that comes much later in life. But I think with ADHD, you have that a lot earlier. You have to deal with that a lot earlier.
Do you both ever clash over the meaning of ADHD?
We've never really discussed it, have we?
I think that's a problem in itself. We've never really discussed it.
We've never ever talked about it.
I think, we've never clashed over it. We've never really discussed it because I think, well, I don't know, maybe this isn't what you think, but it's kind of, you just allow me to just be me. Like it's not, I don't feel the need to like speak about it because like it is just the way it is. And like, it's just all about learning from it, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's kind of like,
it's not something to clash over.
It's kind of the AA prayer, if you can't, don't worry about the things you can't change. There's nothing that's going to prevent you from being ADHD. There's loads of things you can do to support yourself. So I think our conversations have been more around that. It's, it's how you can help yourself and having, providing empathy and understanding.
But also how you're also very supportive, in fact, like how you can excel with ADHD, because it's something that you can really utilize to your advantage, not just, be
but also
annoyed about.
I think it's, being really honest now. I'm someone who likes everything to be stable around me, and I don't like to rock the boat, and it's kind of almost like toxic positivity. And so maybe I don't want to talk about it because I'm scared to go there. I know enough already. I know when you're suffering, and maybe we should have a deeper conversation about it.
But then I also think maybe we don't, because to like the way I see it in sort of outside of in the world is it's maybe it's different now, but it's not taken that seriously. Like as I've grown up, I just don't, people have never taken it seriously. And that's not a poor me. Like, I don't. Sometimes I'm just like, people are like, oh, you're just so ADHD. And they only see it as like someone being really crazy or out there and laughing. And it does come across as almost a joke. I probably don't help, because I probably do play up to it. And like, I love all that attention. But there's so much to it, which I think is also just a problem. Like, people need to nitpick about actually what it is and what comes with it, not just you're so over the top, you're ADHD, that's like so funny.
And I think
like,
I'm only beginning to, I don't think I've taken it that seriously, if I'm,
Yeah,
and
I think
I'm, the more I learn about it, the more, and it's, I'm not going out to research it and find out, it's just happening, it's evolving. My knowledge, but coming here and talking to you, Alex, and doing this podcast is, I'm going to come away having learned so much from you and from my own daughter. And I haven't taken it seriously, but it's a tough thing to live with, and
also, sorry, can I quickly cut you off before I forget, Alex? I know I'll forget about it.
Spit it out.
What I think is the negatives of it are taken more seriously than the positives. So if I'm positive about it and I'm doing my art, doing my whatever, I'm not even going to think twice about how my ADHD is, and people just, they could see me being super happy. And then, so it's not, the positives aren't really taken seriously because you're positive, I guess, but all the negatives are more taken seriously, like being emotional, finding things really difficult in life. Like, people pay more attention to that, which is probably good, but it's also good to talk about the positives, because you can really like make things out of your ADHD, not just like sit and only make something out of the sad parts. I don't know if that made sense, but I just had to get it out.
Yeah, that's good.
No, I agree. I think ADHD can be very positive, but it's that support and awareness, and then trying to manage and mitigate the struggles. I think it can be creativity and pattern recognition and problem solving and being great in a crisis and all of these things. But the danger is you'll see someone who is in a bit of a hole at the moment, and they'll see that and they'll go, oh no, I've got the shit version of ADHD, and it will just compound whatever scenario they're in. I think that support and awareness and managing the drawbacks of it is so important. But once that's out of the way and that sort of cloud is lifted, then it is that being calm in a crisis, resilience, almost impulsivity. I think has a bit of a bad reputation, but I think it can be such a strength. It's why so many people with ADHD just start businesses. We might not always stick at it, but you start enough, one will work.
You're so right. Great in a crisis. I never equated that to ADHD. It's like, give me a crisis. Give me a fucking crisis, and I will make sure it's all okay. I am so good in a crisis. And you are too. If there's a crisis, if someone is having a bad time, if you are so good in a crisis, I've never thought of that.
That dopamine.
And the resilience too.
Yeah, the dopamine.
Jump into problem solving
So
mode.
addictive.
Yeah, it's so true. God, that's brilliant.
I think employees with ADHD is a massive strength in a crisis in a business when everything's shit's hitting the fan, everyone's running around panicking. The ADHD employee is the one navigating the path to success and the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a drawback to this, though, isn't there? Because you can get this racing mind, and if managed and channeled in the right way, you get creativity, you get the pattern recognition, you get the calm in a crisis and being able to zoom out and see patterns where other people see chaos. But if you're not channeling that hyperactivity in a positive direction, it can manifest into anxiety.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that sounds like you're going to preempt the next question. I was going to ask how does anxiety manifest in both of you? And I suppose as a result of that question, how does it feel when you see the other one of you going through an anxious episode?
Anxiety is, for me, my natural state. And so I was actually just saying this to someone earlier. So I wake up in the morning and I have that moment I wake up full of fear every morning. And that was hugely exacerbated when I was drinking, but I still have it. And now I look at it as a haunting. So I know as soon as I get up, it's going to go. So I've just been haunted by anxiety. But then my brain will go, okay, I'm feeling anxious. What am I feeling anxious about? And then I think, okay, what am I feeling? There's nothing to be anxious about. and then my brain will find something to be anxious about.
You're addicted to the anxiety.
I'm
then.
addicted to the anxiety. And then with
Classic.
you, if I may be so bold, and I might be wrong,
No, that's good because
I think I know when you're anxious, you get angry and you become a bit of a bitch. But I know that
Speak for yourself.
That is your fear coming out. that's your. I've learned to recognise that when you're like that, it's because you're fearful of something.
What? I'm trying to think. Wait, sorry. What was your question? I can't remember.
Well, the original question was how anxiety manifests in you. And your mum's just suggested when you get anxious, you turn into a bit of a bitch.
I think that's quite harsh, really. But,
What do you say back to that?
well, I think, yeah, it's probably somewhat true, only to you. But when I get anxious, I do, like around my friends, or I do internalize it, and then I play up to being okay the whole time. Because all my friends, it's actually quite tiring, know me as like being always loud and energetic. And then when I'm anxious, I internalize it for such a long period of time that it's a vicious cycle. It's like I'm on top. And then I can't internalize it anymore, that I just crash. And then that's when I get into my big ruts of like, I won't want to socialize. I don't want to see anyone. I only want to be on my own. And it's like two different extremes. I'm either up here or I'm down there. And I think that's obviously not a good thing, but that's, I think, how it manifests outwardly. But I mean, yeah, obviously I get anxiety about really small things and not being able to control things and not being able to, do things properly. It's just like, sometimes it's just hit after hit. And then it's like, well, okay, I'm just not going to bother anymore. Get into bed.
And
Yeah.
Susannah, that anxiety you mentioned, were there any triggers that exacerbated it after you
I think, again, Alex, is going back to my childhood and not knowing each day how my mum was going to be. It must be from that, because it's just a feeling. There's nothing, yes, there are times when, I have reason to worry or be concerned, but generally it's nothing, and it's just this feeling. And I think you're right. I mean, I'm addicted to feeling anxious.
Well, that's your vice.
And that kind of motivates me. Like I said, I use it as a motivator, to be more productive.
And you've mentioned alcoholism. Was that a cure for the anxiety?
I think, no, it wasn't a cure for the anxiety. I don't think I drank on my feelings so much, but I think I drank because I'd find life so boring, and it was always more fun when I was drinking. So, the days, with no disrespect to you or my children, but, it can be monotonous being a mother. And it's, I'm always an alcoholic. I was born an alcoholic. My mum was an alcoholic. My grandmother was an alcoholic. But for me, I could be in any situation, talking to any person, and if I had a drink, everything was so much more fun. And I think, and that possibly is related to ADHD. I don't know.
I kind of get that.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's more, I don't know what was I saying the other day about drinking? How I like more binge drink, because I won't drink in the week really, because I know how it will affect me. But then when I go out drinking, I always want to be like, always up. And then for me, like, again, I don't drink on my feelings. I don't necessarily have a problem, but if I'll have one drink and I'll drink so fast and I'll carry on drinking, because then I won't have to think about having control of what I'm doing next. Because if I'm having one pint, I'll be like, what are we doing next? I have to know what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
Just because if then they go, no, we're going to go home, then I'll know that I'll be sober enough that I have to face the actual reality of like getting into bed and then thinking about things and my mind racing the whole time. And whereas if I'm so pissed, I can go to bed and I'm asleep and my mind doesn't wander at night.
So it's freedom from your thinking.
It's just like, oof, and I don't have to think about anything. So maybe I do have a problem.
That anxiety, Susannah, how did that manifest, and how did you deal with that when you stepped into the world of TV, which I imagine is an arena that you put yourself in, which was very lots of eyes on you, very judgmental and exposure to the press. How did anxiety show up then?
I wasn't anxious about that at all.
You got thick skin.
I think having that kind of level of success later, I was in my early 30s, was a huge benefit. But also I never for me, it was a job. And I never thought about how people saw me. But then that was at the time. But looking back, I think I did find it difficult because it wasn't kind of my natural environment. And my natural environment is, in mud under a stone. That's where I'm happiest. I'm quite an introvert. And so I think maybe that's why my drinking exacerbated, because I was having to be Susannah and Susannah and Trinny when actually I'm not fucking Susannah. I'm not Susannah who's on TV. I'm Susannah who wants to be, in the countryside, looking like shit, but being free. So I think I spent 15 years performing, actually, which was exhausting. And I've only realized, I wrote a book, a sort of memoir, and I think I came to that realization that having had a quite an isolated childhood and being very happy in nature and with animals and, relying on that, I've done a full circle and come back to wanting to be a home bird.
In your calm.
In my calm.
Protect your peace.
And with, my family and the friends who get it and who I've had for a long time.
We made a really successful career out of masking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, fucking Oscar-winning actress here, and the Oscar goes to that she's played for 15 years. Yeah, but I'm sure probably alcohol helped that.
How wide is the gap between the character and yourself?
Yeah, the TV Susannah is, I think the perceived TV Susannah is very different from the real Susannah.
It's like a more
just cut all
heightened
that
version.
out.
Just like an extra really...
Yeah, maybe.
But you did it well.
Yeah.
So really...
I know, I did it well, and it's given me a life, it's given all of us a life where I can be quieter. And that's why I love writing, because it affords me the perfect excuse not to see other people.
Esme, when you watch back your mum on telly as in character, if you notice the gap?
I think I did notice the difference, to be fair, of like your mum and then this more like glamorous, like sort of, I don't know, you're very outspoken. I mean, I thought it was so cool, obviously, but I honestly, I hadn't really watched it. I think I was probably at a good age when you did it because I didn't think anything of it. So
I don't think any of you kids couldn't have cared less. It's like,
yeah,
you really you weren't impressed by it. It was just like mum's going off to work.
Yeah, and literally was work. I didn't think anything of it. And also, I think we were at an age where we were just, at home and, just chilling with each other. And I think I wasn't old enough to understand what exactly you were doing and how iconic you actually were. Only now do I realise how iconic you are. Like, even just having Trinny and Susannah on a bloody, newspaper, that's all the context you need. Yeah. And everyone knows who you are. And it's like, wow.
Yeah,
you've done something there.
Are either of you familiar with the term RSD?
No.
It stands for rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
Oh.
I don't think I've heard of it.
How do you respond to criticism, Esme?
What are you saying, Alex?
Are you criticising me? No, I'm kidding. Not well. No, not well. I either do a lot of yappa back, like, what? Sorry? And I think I take it very personally. I mean, especially from people who are close to me. If I hear someone sort of say something in a job, I mean, I'll be a bit down about it, but I'll probably get upset, but I wouldn't take it as personally as when you or dad gave you some home truths. I'd be like,
oh no, then you become like Vicky Pollard.
I was
it's like, no. but
a bit of that. So I don't think I respond too well I'm also a massive internalizer.
But you do. So you come back with the chat and the, with the yeah, but no, but then it always sinks in.
No, but
And then it sinks in. It just takes a bit of time.
or I go and just
and then you
to
come
my
out.
room and not to my room. I sound like such a child, but or I go, if you've annoyed me, I'll go and speak to my friends about it, and I'll be like, "I won't believe what Mum's just done," and then I read back, I'm like, "God, I sound like such a brat." Like, just get over it. But probably not well, all in all. But good. I learned from it eventually.
And Susannah, I know it's a broad question. You must have been exposed to a fair bit of criticism over your career. How does it affect you?
I remember the worst criticism that Trinny and I got was this article came out in the Times, and they did that kind of Financial Times thing in the life and whatever it is section when they have the portrait, the drawn portrait of someone. And they did that, and it wasn't an interview, it was just a critique on us. And the final sentence was, the next time these two see themselves on television has to be to witness their own hanging. Okay, which
Bloody
is quite
hell.
harsh. And we had these friends staying, and I was literally sobbing out loud. And I don't cry. I never, ever, I wish I did cry more. I do not cry. Sobbing. And I took that. I was so upset by that. But I don't really mind about kind of, if people don't know me, I don't mind. They can criticize all they want. But if, like Esme says, if it's people who I love or people who I respect who criticize me, I get very upset. But then I'll listen and try and do something about it.
Because like, why I get upset probably, and same probably with you, is you do know there's an element of truth there. And that's why it's so like hard to take, because you're like, right, but I'm not going to admit it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's when it's based in truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know there's some merit to it, that it really cuts deep.
Yeah.
How would you describe that feeling? You mentioned sadness. Is there rage?
Yeah, I'm trying to think when I get criticised. Yeah, it's, to be honest, I go from like not 0 to 100 in rage, but I can feel myself like getting so like wound up and upset about it. And yeah, it can be small things that, like, actually this is so relevant, but I left my laptop on the train on the way to going away with my family, well, without you, but with Joe, my brother, kept probing me about being so disorganized and all this stuff. And he was probing a word.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he kept prodding me and prodding me about it. And I was just like, I brushed off at first, and I was welling up when I couldn't deal with it, and I started crying because I was like, that's just so mean. Like, I know I'm disorganized, but you don't have to, So I think it's just a lot of emotion, I think. Whether it's rage or like being sad, I just feel it really like it just comes out, and I can't often control it. I've got better at like understanding it, but
I think I can't remember what our RD thingy is, but it is rejection for me.
Yeah.
If someone criticizes me, it's like that thing of, Esme's father, my beloved husband, he's very, not critical, but he will critique, which is hugely valuable. But often I will take it as, okay, you're not, let's say I'm holding a bottle of water, and he'll go, you're holding that in a weird way. And I'll take it as
personal attack.
You hate me, you think I'm useless, you think there's no point of having someone like you on this earth, and all he's done is talk about the way I'm holding a bottle. So I guess that's
No, you're being too hard on
rejection.
yourself. That is
No, I know, I'm
very
not
harsh.
saying, he can be harsh, but that is, if it's someone you love and they criticize you, you take it like
as
it's your
yeah.
whole being, not just the one thing that they may be focused on.
You've described it perfectly. That response to a slight comment.
Yeah.
It's almost like, because so many people with ADHD, we've been exposed to so many micro criticisms and corrections through our early years. We've worked so hard to try and be perfect and mask all of those imperfections. And then when someone mentions one, when we're an adult, it's kind of
Triggering.
like you get angry or sad because you know that they've seen through the mask.
Yeah.
that can manifest in rage or sadness because it's sort of slipped and all of your hard work has sort of in that moment gone to waste.
I've never thought about it
No,
like
no,
that.
well, that's made me feel quite emotional. It's like,
Yeah.
God, someone understands you. But that's so true.
Yeah, and I think also, I don't want to say anything bad about Dad because Dad's the best dad in the world, but he obviously doesn't really get it. And so he often he gets a bit personal and like, you know.
But do you think, Alex, men generally, if they're not ADHD, do you think they find it harder to understand than women who? So let's say there's a mother and a father with an ADHD child. Does the father find it harder to deal with, do you think, generally? Or is it?
I think they can do.
Yeah.
I think there's until recently, the messaging or the science has dictated that only men can have ADHD.
Yeah.
I know, it's like you think of ADHD and you think that
a boy thing for
13-year-old little
boys.
bugger,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
The women and girls
Yeah.
are having a much harder time because the vast majority of them don't present in the sort of stereotypical manifestation of what a lot of people, particularly older men, think ADHD is. So they go to them saying, I've got this diagnosis. And because they're not hyperactive, running around the house, throwing toys around, that it doesn't necessarily get taken seriously. But I think there has to be a willingness to learn and update
Yeah,
the
100%.
prejudice that so many people have towards those
agree.
four letters.
But I just think generally people don't take it seriously enough. But at the same time, on the other side, you've got ADHD and it's become like a sort of trending euphemism that, you know, it's almost become like a sort of TikTok trend or something where you're ADHD. So that
Doesn't help.
does not help because it takes away the fact that it is a real disorder that does affect people and can affect people in a very, very negative way as well as being a positive. But
Yeah, I think ADHD is going through a weird phase where it's potentially getting a bit overexposed.
yeah.
I think everyone has ADHD in terms of everyone does occasionally forget their car keys. Everyone does
That's so
occasionally
annoying.
So
zone
true.
out of
People's-
conversation. Everyone does occasionally forget to text their friend back. But it's that a neurotypical person will go through that as like waves.
Yeah.
For someone with that actual ADHD, that high will be like the tip of Everest.
Yeah.
And the low will be the Dead Sea in Israel, the lowest point on earth. You know, it's that extreme swing between the highs and the lows and the continuousness of that swing, which separates it. And because of that, it's that the comorbidities of ADHD, you know, not everyone has crippling anxiety. Not everyone is, unfortunately, fortunately, 4 times more likely to have an attempt on their own life. That's the reality of ADHD, unfortunately. So it does really wind me up when you hear, you know, ignorant people say everyone has ADHD because they just
really
don't.
annoying. It is very annoying.
Yeah.
But then you're just like, I mean, it's good there's so much like talking about it because it's only going to educate people. But when people go, oh,
it
I'm
has
so
to be
ADHD.
spoken about in the right way. And I think especially for your generation, I mean, for a part, you know, I haven't seen anyone who is talking about it from their own personal experience and talking about it in a responsible way.
Someone needs to come
And
out
I
and be
think
like an
you
ambassador.
ought to do that. You ought to kind of fly the flag for
Yeah, well, it has to be done.
get off
the right
your
way.
ass and do it and stop procrastinating, basically.
That's just, there you go. Reacting to criticism.
We're halfway through the episode now, and I know what you're all thinking. Where the hell is the midway sponsor we've all been patiently waiting for, Alex? Well, thank you for reminding me. A word from our sponsor, Stasis. I talk to a lot of my fellow ADHD friends that take the prescribed stimulants like Adderall or Vyvanse, and they always say the same thing, that the afternoon energy crashes, sleep interruptions, and irritability these meds cause can really deter them from enjoying the benefits that these stimulants provide. So much so that it makes them question taking them altogether. A close entrepreneurial friend of mine even came off meds entirely because he was literally and figuratively tired from the negative effects associated with these stimulants, until I urged him to try Stasis, which helped him, in his own words, correct his natural chemical balance, in turn helping with deeper sleep, even out his energy levels and promoting a calmer mood. Well, I'm happy to let you know that with Stasis, you don't have to choose anymore. Stasis is the first of its kind supplement that you take with your stimulant. It contains naturally derived vitamins, minerals, adaptogens, and antioxidants that level out the less desirable effects of stimulants, so you can take it without suffering from the downsides. It's been precision formulated to target the root causes of those downsides by regulating dopamine levels, warding off cortisol spikes, and targeting oxidative stress, all with ingredients that come straight from nature. Less brain fog, less jitters, increased focus, more sustained energy throughout the day, and less stress. If you take stimulants, why wouldn't you boost your brain health with Stasis? ADHD Chatter listeners can get 20% off with the link in the description. Try it for yourself. And maybe I'm biased, but there is one other proven way to relieve stress, and that's by carrying on watching the episode. I want to talk about impulsivity, but first I want to focus back on the Rubik's Cube, your ADHD item. Let's talk about that. Why does that represent ADHD for you?
Well, for me, it was always an object that I fiddled with and I fiddle with. I can do it. Please don't make me do it because it takes me quite a long time. But so it's always been something that I can focus on for a long time because, it's got loads of colours and everything. But on a more like metaphorical standing point, look at it, it's like just a jumble of everything. And very rarely, it takes a long time for the colours all to be aligned. And it's rare that that can happen quickly. So for me, it was like, I can spend hours doing that. And I still don't remember the algorithm to do it. But I guess once you do remember it, it's the algorithm to get it done. It's so easy to get your colours correct. So yeah, I think that's why. It's just that represents my brain. Yeah. And maybe when also I take my medication, my brain is pretty much almost solved. It's not completely, but it's like, I think it was a good representation of like crazy, takes a long time to figure things out, literally like a puzzle. But then when you get there, and it does make things feel
serene,
zen, which is very rare. But that's why I think.
Actually, an incredible analogy.
Thank
mentioned
you.
it. I had my suspicions that it was going that way because as soon as I saw it, I was like, "That's chaotic. All bits everywhere, scattered, but in rare moments, it's all aligned.
Yeah,
and everything's focused and everything works. No, brilliant.
Thank you.
I want to do the ADHD agony aunt section, which is a little segment. I call it the washing machine of woes because my ADHD item is a washing machine because I always leave my laundry in the machine. You do that?
That would smell so bad. That's the only reason why I don't.
Good.
Well, yeah, the damp smell. It's a recurring theme in my house. I'll have to say, though, I've been using the Tiimo app, which is the sponsor, and ever since then it's getting a bit better. So yeah, every week I ask my Instagram community to send in their woes, ADHD woes, and it goes in the washing machine of woes. And I read it to my guest, and we see if there's some wisdom tips. So this week,
such a good idea.
I love the washing machine. That's funny.
It's about the size of the one in where you live, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, this week in the washing machine of woes, I witnessed my daughter being different around her classmates. She's 13. When she's with them, she's a totally different person, but she's amazing just the way she is. Do you think it's healthy to mask in this way?
Is she masking? I mean, if that was my daughter, let's say it was Esme.
13, I probably wouldn't know if I was masking or not.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't notice, to be honest. But I think that children generally are different when they're with their friends because you've got that sort of a bit of peer pressure to maybe be a bit more like them, to fit in. And then when, like you were saying earlier, Esme, when you're at home, you can be your true self. You feel safe to be your true self. So I would say it's totally normal, and she's a very lucky mum to have such an amazing daughter.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many variables, isn't there?
Yeah.
Is she masking at school? Is she masking at home? Maybe the parents.
But the fact is that WW Wow is aware of it. Because
I Sorry, that stands for washing machine of woes. That's just
Okay,
for
the
my...
washing
I was
the
like,
ladies.
Mum.
Yeah, that would have been a coincidence, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I was like,
The
pretty
initials-
sure.
She was
that's-
made to submit a question for
I
the
just
washing
think,
machine of woes.
yeah, the mum is amazing that she's noticed that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when you were 13, I probably wouldn't have done,
Mm.
mainly because I had my head in a bottle somewhere.
You mentioned earlier your mum's got a thick skin.
Yeah.
How did you deal with like that press criticism? Because with ADHD myself, having something that's out of my control would for me be literal hell. How did you deal with being exposed to being not in control of what the press wrote about you?
Maybe you have a different memory than I do. I don't remember so much criticism, and I think again it was being older and knowing when you know who you are and you know who your friends are, and there's nothing Trinny or I could do to change it. So there was no point in really worrying about it. So, you just sort of keep your side of the street clean. As long as you continue doing that, then whatever everyone else thought was none of my business.
So you were so successful. So does it really matter?
Well, no, it was. I mean, I would, it's like when I did Strictly,
Oh yeah, that's
and which
tough.
was a real low point in my life because I was so shockingly bad, the humiliation. But when I was put with Anton, the pouring of hate, not hate, but of criticism, like poor Anton, he's
That's
been
so mean.
put with the old fat lump again. And I would just write back. It was like on the BBC Instagram.
Pretty sure I wrote back as well.
And I would write back.
I was like, don't you dare be so mean to my mum. Like, what the
I would just
hell?
write back and just say, you're so right. I really feel sorry that Anton's been put with me. And, so generally the criticism is correct.
Oh, that bodes well.
And Esme, how do you own your ADHD? Do you wear it like a badge of honor?
Yeah. I love having it. I don't think I'm proud. I'm really proud to have ADHD, and like, I would love for other people to feel the same and like not feel they can't speak about it, or I don't know. Yeah, I'm really proud to have it, even though it gets me down and it's a huge struggle, but I think, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change it, put it that way.
And obviously, you know your mum far better than most. Do you think Susannah would get a diagnosis if she went for an assessment of ADHD?
Probably. But I'm not sure because, again, what I don't understand is how like the difference between it and manifesting in old people and then young people.
Sorry, did you say old people?
Sorry, like middle.
God,
Wait, what are you? Fine. I just think I think it's like a weird timeline, and it can change. I mean, the foundations are probably all there, so I think, yeah, you probably do in some respects.
I mean, I spoke to this journalist.
I think you
There's a
probably
mate,
got
I
it.
don't know if you should have her on if you haven't had her on yet. She's called Kate Horn, and she's a filmmaker. She's won 2 Emmy Awards, I think. She's British, and she has ADHD. And she wrote an amazing piece in the Telegraph magazine about it. And the way she described her ADHD was like having a Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes, which was so brilliant. And I've used that phrase and taken it as my own, like I came up with it myself.
Yeah,
But
I did think that was right.
I met with her about something different, and we hadn't even raised the point of ADHD or spoken about it. She said, "My God, so ADHD." And she was also saying, sorry, this is going
That
off on a
phrase is so
tangent,
annoying.
but that something like 60% of women who are in prison have ADHD.
The stats around the justice system and the
Yeah, it's
prisons are outrageous.
wild.
It's a different conversation.
Yeah.
but essentially, it's 25%, but the people that work in the prisons think it's as high as 85%, but that's a whole nother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think you've got ADHD?
I don't know. I think when it suits me, I probably have got it. But yeah, I think that, I can be incredibly frustrating to be around, especially for someone who has an organized, balanced brain and emotional profile. I think I can be very frustrating. I think it's possible, but at the same time, I think that, you know, it's like your sister Jess and I were talking a bit earlier. It's like, you know, if you're 60, I've managed this for this long. You know, I think I don't need an ADHD diagnosis. I'm learning the tools on behalf of my daughters, and hopefully I can apply those to myself.
What do you think helped you navigate through life without confronting the fact that you might have ADHD? And what do you think masked it so well?
Ignorance, probably. Not knowing. I mean, ADHD's only become a thing for me since Esme was diagnosed, whatever it was, 6 years ago. So, you know, what you don't know, you don't worry about. And I think ignorance helped me.
You've worked for years in fashion.
Sort of, yeah.
Making other women feel good about themselves. What has this experience over the years taught you about the self-esteem problems within women?
A huge amount. That how women, if a woman says they have high self-esteem and they regard themselves in a completely, you know, they not respect themselves, but they have no low points in their self-esteem, they are lying. I really believe that. I think women suffer terribly, whether it's inflicted onto them by themselves or by other people. And I do believe that, I mean, I got so much out of that, helping women through dressing them. And for me, and also just talking, being a voice, you know, being an ear for women to talk to and to have someone actually focus on them for maybe the first time in years. Because women often put themselves at the bottom of the list, especially if they have children. And, you know, some of the things that you said today and some of the things that Esme have said have really struck a chord, because a little bit has thought, oh, I've been noticed in some way. So I think, you know, women do naturally have low self-esteem, and dressing can really affect your mood. So if I, you know, have a wake up and I'm not feeling great, or, you know, I feel the kind of black dog looming, I will dress like I'm going to a meeting, even if I'm, you know, sitting at my kitchen table writing for the whole day. And that has a big impact. So, and I feel very proud that we helped a lot of women, so many women, with their self-esteem, and I really hope it starts, you know, and stayed with them.
I remember watching a documentary about bipolar that Stephen Fry hosted.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
He said it wasn't so much that he wanted to end his own life, rather that he would hope something happened to him to end it all, something taking the power out of his hands. You've said something similar.
Yeah.
About hoping a lorry would end the feelings of anxiety. Having been through it and having these thoughts, do you know what separates cases like yours from people who actually do something about it in ending a temporary problem with a permanent solution?
Gosh, that's such a big question. And yes, I did feel that when I was actively drinking. You know, I'd want to, I kind of, you know, it was like not be responsible for ending my life. And like Stephen Fry has said, you know, for someone else to do it for me. But I would never have gone through with it. And I think, I don't know, but if someone does take their, I hope I'm answering the question in the right way, but when someone does go through with it, I personally believe that it's kind of like a moment of madness. It's just this sort of flash, and it can happen to, you know, not to anyone, but I think it's, you know, I've known a lot of people who have done that, you know, who have killed themselves. And I think it is a moment of madness. And, but I think people do have, quote unquote, suicidal thoughts. And it takes a lot to be in a lot of pain to actually go through with it and do it yourself, I imagine.
Esme, how does it feel hearing your mum talk about such topics and feeling such pain?
Yeah, well, very upsetting. I probably know you'd obviously never do it, but even to like have those thoughts is like you have to be in a place like where you're obviously extremely, upset and down. I'm probably using the wrong words here, but yeah, I never thought, things would have been that bad. And I guess it's so subjective to people about what causes their pain. And like, you can be so fine on the exterior. And obviously you're having to be a mum, and you would never want like your child, us growing up, to be exposed to like what is actually going on. And so probably having to suppress your emotions like that must have been also very difficult for you, because when you suppress things, it only makes things a bigger problem kind of thing. Well, in my experience. But so obviously like, it makes me feel, obviously I would have loved to have made things better for you.
But that's
but yeah, I think
you were too young, and it's weird how history repeats itself, because I think of back to my mum, when she was really at the height of her bipolar disorder, and I wasn't really old enough to understand, not to understand, but yeah, to kind of empathize. And now I look back, I wish that I had been older, because I feel I could have been, I could have helped her in some way, and especially knowing what I know now. It's not so much about ADHD, but about bipolar disorder. It's kind of.
I guess you just never know how extreme people's situations are. I mean, like I've had a few friends who've sadly taken their life, but you just don't, like, you never know, like you just have no idea what's like going on behind closed doors, and someone may say, oh, they're fine. And obviously, well, they're not fine,
I think it's just so agonizing to think about, even though I sort of felt like that myself, but the true concentrated agony that someone must be going through to take their own life is just, one can't even imagine. It's just desperately, desperately tragic.
Do you remember, like, thinking back, what hole you were in? Like, what was causing those feelings at the time?
Extreme anxiety, and I think my life was out of control, and I was exhausted from holding it together. And I guess it was, I mean, it wasn't, I wasn't, don't get me wrong, I was not suicidal, and I would never have, I really was not, but it was that feeling of being trapped by alcohol. And maybe, I'd think in the morning, when my anxiety was only ever, I had those feelings in the morning, was because that's when my anxiety and my fear and my guilt and my shame were at its highest. And then it would pass, and I'd get on with the day, and then I'd feel a bit better, and then I feel better enough to have another drink at 6 o'clock, the vicious cycle. So,
but it's weird how people like having control over things, or if I like having control over things, I'm anxious about what will happen. My brain might go, whatever. But then you'll drink, which essentially you lose that control. So it's weird how when you really want to be in control of something, but then you'll fuck yourself over by like getting involved in like boozing to a point where you have no control. It's just weird. Well, it's not weird. I just find it's strange.
Yeah,
but I love having control over things, but then I'll drink.
The control is exhausting, and I think that's a lot of the reason, why people do drink. It's really exhausting.
Yeah, it's
wanting to be in control, but maybe, wanting to be in control, have to work so hard to be in control, especially if you're dealing, the day after drinking. And then that another drink will take that exhaustion away.
The edge off.
Yeah.
Having been in AA myself, it's very relatable, the I heard it time and time again, is that danger zone. People who are wanting to stop, where they have that realization that they can't stand life sober. There's the anxiety, and they can't stand life with drinking, because that just takes them to really dark places as well. And I think that when you're beginning that journey of sobriety, can be a real danger zone. You're having that realization, or it's really shit on both hands.
Yeah.
How did you get out of it? How did you progress past that phase?
I don't think, Alex, I ever really went through that phase, because I after the rock bottom, I took myself to an AA meeting, and it was just like I'd come home. It was, the relief was so overwhelming that I was hearing stories about myself. It was that identification, and it was probably the most liberating moment of my life was walking into that first AA meeting, and primarily understanding that the only person who could help was myself. So I didn't have to rely on anyone else. So it's kind of going back to that childhood thing, in a way, of knowing that really the only person I can rely on is myself. And it was the same with alcohol, to know that although, we say we're powerless over alcohol, and but I felt for the first time, I felt that I did have power and I could do something about it. And that was such an amazing feeling.
I think...
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Well, you go if you...
I was going to continue just by saying it's a liberating feeling when, again, it's one of those things you hear in meetings where people realize they can live without booze.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful, liberating feeling.
Yeah. It's because it's, prison sentence.
You either end up in prison in a psychiatric unit or in a grave.
Yeah.
And
it's a progressive illness. The more you drink, the more you drink. And I'm just so grateful to be sober.
What have you taught each other about ADHD or mental health in general, do you think?
I think what you've taught me, Esme, is that when times get hard, I don't have to go through them on my own. And whilst as a mother, I don't reveal everything, because I want to be the parent, and I don't look at my children as my friends. They are my children. But at the same time, I have opened up, and because Esme is an uber empath, she, without me asking, has given me the most amazing advice. And, as someone who is so much wiser than her years would say. And I think having ADHD does create this amazing sense of empathy towards others.
I also think you haven't taught me anything like explicitly, but through life and through my experiences and, going through the ups and downs, you've been there for me, but you've let me come to my own, understanding of things and come to my own conclusions and make my own decisions. Like, even being in not a good relationship, Mum never said you need to break up or whatever, but she let me get to the point where I knew it was right. So I think you've allowed me to discover and become so self-aware, as a person, of who I am and my emotions, and that, I think, rather than telling me what I should do, you've allowed me to do it on my own. And I think that's why I'm so aware of things, and I can support you.
I've just given you enough rope to hang yourself. That's what I've done.
No, but you always support me emotionally, and
Yeah.
You're 100% the first person I'll go to if I'm ever even just having a tiny little blip. But you've also let me figure it out, and I'm so glad, because I could easily just be a mummy's girl and come to you for absolutely everything. But it's just, made me a stronger person. And I like being able to have that independence where I know I'm able to get over things myself. Not just
Yeah, and it's very important that you have that.
So I think not teaching me things about, ADHD, but having ADHD and learning about it myself and my experiences it's way beneficial because I can then help other people if they needed it. And like I love being able to like have my experiences and share them. Like my friend, she just got diagnosed, and like we just talk all day about it, and like we're so similar, and it's just like it's nice to have someone who in your friendship group who takes it seriously, because not many people know they have it, or you know they might not take it seriously, but it's so refreshing speaking to someone my age who like really gets it. And I don't feel like I'm like, there'd be times in my relationship where I would think I was going like insane. And actually like she shared very similar stories, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it must be ADHD, like, I'm not bloody mental, you know? So yeah, that's, I don't know if I've asked
Can't
that
wait to
the
find
question.
out who that is.
I'm not going to say.
No, don't say.
I was about to say, I was like, oh no.
Penultimate question.
Yeah.
And I'll ask Esme first. What do you think each other could improve on?
Oof.
You could improve. Well, I'm answering what she can improve on, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Sorry. You could improve on maybe like sometimes I don't feel like you're listening to me, and I don't feel heard. And I get really upset about that. I hate being like, I don't know, like when I don't feel like I'm being heard, I get quite upset, and I'll just sort of, I won't even react anymore because I know you're busy or you're doing things, or so I'm just like, okay, whatever. But yeah, maybe I hate to go back to drinking again, but maybe it was a case of like, you know how you were saying you relied on your mum? Well, no, you couldn't rely on her. When like you were drinking, I felt I couldn't really rely on you, to be fair. So like I would just, I don't know, go away and deal with it. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but
No, but
yeah,
I
I feel like being heard is something now that really triggers me, because maybe as a kid I wasn't necessarily heard as much as I would have liked to.
Yeah.
I know people have it off a lot worse, but like, you know, maybe that, because that really, I don't know why it really like hits deep when I just don't feel like you're listening to me, or you're not supporting me enough. But which you do, but I think, yeah.
But I really understand what you're saying, because I think, you know, when you're drinking actually drinking, you're not in the present at all. You're not at all. So I can completely,
Yeah, and that was
I
rough.
take that on board and go, yep, hands up. And so I'm sure that is a trigger when I'm not listening to you.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so, okay, that's good to know. I'll
My turn.
slap you outside when I'm doing the podcast.
Yeah, right.
How does that make you feel, Susannah, hearing Esme say those two things?
I kind of immediately feel a bit defensive and go, well, you know, you call me 6 times a day. Maybe I can't take any more in. No, I think it's like I know she would only say that if it was the truth. So I feel that's something that I can be aware of. So I see it as without, you know, everyone having to pass the sick bag, you know, but I think that's something that I'm really glad I know and I can do something about, and I will.
It's just
try to
more
be
like a
better.
trigger. It's not like, it's just the way it makes me feel. It's not, I don't mind you not listening to me, but it's just more, it triggers something in me that generally makes me feel just quite upset. But the act of you not listening is not the thing. It's like the emotion that makes me feel like it's very unsettling for me. And like
I'm
it just
sure
makes me feel
that's
uneasy.
where it comes from. You're
Yeah,
right. I'm
I think-
sure that's where it comes from. Okay.
Your turn.
Yeah, my turn.
Bring out the list.
Okay, so
No.
1. No, I
say
just
nothing.
wish that you had more faith in yourself, I think is the main thing, because the way you see yourself is very different from the way other people see you. And you know, I look at you, and I know you're my daughter, but I can be quite objective. But you know, I just wish that you could have more faith in yourself, and you know, your friends and people who love you see you as this amazing person, but you don't see yourself as that.
Yeah.
You agree with that assessment?
I very much agree with that. I think I know I could have more faith in myself, and I'm probably able to, but I don't know. It is true. But I just don't, I don't know. I feel I don't ever want to be, like every time I do something good, I just don't think it's good enough, basically. And I'm always putting myself down before I've even done something. Like this whole Tatler thing, whatever, like, I don't know. Everyone's like, it's amazing. I'm like, it's really just not.
Yeah, but
That's not even a good example.
The bottom
so cut
line
that,
is,
but
it's just not. It is just not. You know, I mean, it's amazing on one level, but it's like, you know, you have done so many more
don't
amazing
include the
things.
Tatler thing, by the way. But
No, but
it's
then
more,
being on the cover
No,
of
no,
fucking
no.
Tatler,
It's
you've done
more like-
so much more than that.
if I get a job or if I do an internship, I won't even give it time to be like, oh, I've done really well. I'll just be like, whatever. And then I won't even take into account that I've like had all these good things that I've done. I would just think, okay, well now I need to do the next thing to prove that I'm good enough, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I'm
Even
like
though I will
that.
never feel like, well, not never, but even though I don't feel ever good enough, you know?
Many people in the ADHD community, when they achieve something, they don't feel any sense of accomplishment, just a
Yeah.
mild sense of relief that it's done.
Yeah.
Totally.
And you've managed to get it done.
Because you're sort of, I'm not going to speak on your behalf, but because many of us, we sort of live in the now.
Yeah.
The past and the future kind of don't exist. So we achieve something, we do it, and then because that's then in the past, it ceases to exist. So when we're trying to do something else, we don't have
Yeah.
that evidence to draw on. So we
Yeah.
don't think we can do it. So we're sort of all floating along with this sort of lack of evidence that we are capable of doing amazing things because we don't store these achievements in our subconscious.
That I've never thought about. That's hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly.
Because I always thought that, you know, I've done many things and, you know, I don't think, you know, yeah, I've had a career and it's been known, but I don't think, you know, it's sort of so what. But I always thought it's like being addicted to the hit of the next thing. So, okay, you know, people say, oh, God, it was so amazing you were on Oprah, or, you know, how was it? And I'm like, well, I don't really, you know.
You don't remember though.
I don't really remember. And then it's like, but it's the next thing that's what's exciting.
you
And
just
so
chase
the
it.
next book deal, you know, getting a book deal, it's like, yes. And then once it's done, it's maybe a sense of achievement for half an hour or something. And
Yeah,
then
if
that's it. It's
that.
on to the next thing, the next thing.
And like one of my best friends, Cosmo, shout out to Cosmo. He's like a huge supporter of like everything. He's like so good. But today he was like, you know, you just gotta enjoy the moment. I was like, didn't even know what that means. Like, I don't even know what a moment is. But thanks. Move on.
There's this phenomenon called object permanence. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't heard of
It's
that.
like objects, unless they're sort of in your immediate now, in your present, they cease to exist. And that can be with friendships, family members even. So it's difficult to maintain relationships. But that can also relate to events. You lose connection of an event. As I was saying before, it's that sort of, because it's not in your now, if it's something you've done in the past, you forget it's happened.
Yeah.
You forget, you lose touch of the memory of your capability of being able to do something. When
Yeah.
it comes around again, you don't think you can do it. And we call it imposter syndrome, whatever you like, but it's that we struggle to store our achievements in our subconscious.
Yeah, I also have that massively with relationships and friendships. Like, I can just forget that I'm so bad at like keeping contact with people. People think I'm being so rude, and like I feel so much guilt when I just can't see people, or because I just physically can't. But like I find it really hard to maintain things because I can forget about them. And then when it comes around to like meeting in a big group, I just like won't think I can. I just feel so anxious, and then I'm like, oh, I've done it before, but I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna go. It's probably not the same thing, but yeah, I just have that. Like, and everyone thinks I've like, oh, you never see us. I'm like, oh, sorry, it takes me to like 3 to 5 days to reply.
Yeah.
But the guilt is hanging over my head. I know I need to reply to that person, but I just won't.
Or you think you reply, or you reply mentally.
Oh, I always
And then you
reply
get distracted
mentally.
by
I
something
always
else.
reply mentally.
And then you realise you have 3 weeks later, you're like, shit, I never responded to that
I
text.
think if I looked up on WhatsApp, oh my God, I replied mentally, it would come up with thousands and thousands of like different, Oh well, people
Final
get it.
question. I'll ask you again, Esme, first.
Yeah.
What would you never change about Susannah, your mum?
I would never change. I wouldn't change anything about you. I would never change your your ability to, be empathetic, passionate, to be such a good mum. And you look after me so well. I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God, I actually am, don't. Oh God. That just says it all. Yeah. I don't know why I'm getting upset. This has actually been a really emotional podcast because we've gone through so much.
Tissues. Have we got any tissues?
That's fine.
I've got a cloth, if that's going to help. I probably the most hygienic thing.
I also don't cry about these things. But I think that's because we've gone through so much in this podcast, it's just it will come out. That's what I'm saying. It builds and builds and then it goes boof. But yeah, I think I wouldn't change anything about you, I guess.
I know. Even though I'm getting a bit too, and I trust me, I never ever cry. Yes, it's I don't feel pride, or I just feel huge love.
Yeah.
I don't feel pride. I think, that's so great to hear. I just feel it. Can't really articulate it. Yeah.
This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Have you enjoyed yourself?
I've had such a good time.
It's been mind-blowing.
It's been like everything at once.
It would genuinely, Alex, I think you should have, I think everybody needs to come on this podcast because
I feel so enlightened, but also just almost like a release to talk about it and know that other people are going to hear about it. And I just hope other people can, relate to it and think, oh my gosh, or something clicks. Thank God I'm not the only one. And I hope that everyone has the balls to just,
I think it's just, mental health, especially in young people, is such a huge problem. And I do want to give a shout out to Synapse, which is this new organisation that I'm very involved in, which helps, between the ages of 13 and 25, you get assessed and then you get put with a coach.
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the best.
And someone who's been through or can identify with what you've done. And it's just the power of human connection. And it's an amazing organisation.
I'll put the link to that in the description of the episode.
I mean, it's sort of had a soft launch, but it's and anyone can train to be, we don't need this on the podcast, anyone can train to be a coach. We all could. And so I would be probably paired with a kid whose mum is an alcoholic, and you would be paired with someone who's got ADHD, or there will be some connection and they get trained. And then if they trained to be aware and assess if there is a problem where professional clinical help is needed. And I think it's going to change so much mental health in young people.
I'd also love to help people with ADHD, people my age.
We have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guest writes 3 rules to live by.
Yeah.
And they post it in that post box. And then through the magic of time travel, I deliver the past guest's letter to you. And if you please could open it and read it out.
Shall I read them? The 3 rules to live by. 1, get a dog. I agree. Live, does that say love for all it's worth? Keep hope alive in yourself and in others.
Dogs are great, aren't they?
Yeah.
Dogs are the
Do you have
best.
dogs?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not madly in love with those dogs, but I want my own little dogs. They're soft and they make reduce my anxiety.
You wouldn't be able to look
Get you
after
walking
it.
as well. Great for ADHD,
Yeah.
I think, getting out, walking the dog.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's the social tools. The boxing, for you, boxing, running, exercise, so important.
Susannah Esme, thank you very much. How many domains do you own?
Oh, I have if I haven't actively made the www bits, but I have probably over 100 different business ideas on my notes, which I've started writing things out, and then I'm bought nah, and then I just stop. I've got so many, but I haven't actually done the website bit just because I don't actually know how to make a website. I haven't ever thought I could get that far to be Seems a bit of an effort. So a lot, but not domains, not specifically.
What about you, Susannah? Do you have any domains?
None.
None. Do you relate to the boom and bust cycle? It's sort of getting really enthusiastic about something
it's so
and then just
annoying.
losing interest a day later.
I
Yeah.
have lots of ideas that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I
have
get
an
really
action then?
obsessed.
I'm doing this, and then it's on to the next one. Yeah.
What's the most you've ever like actioned an idea? Have you ever like invested loads of time, money in something and then gone,
Yeah, I actually invested a lot of money into like the NFT scene, made a whole NFT, made like a few of them, which cost a lot of money. And then I just got bored and it's just, I wanted to sell all of them. I didn't. I spent all that money. Maybe that's the most impulsive thing I've done. Put a lot of my money in and then didn't do anything with it. I just was like, oh, I literally made a whole page on OpenSea. Like I designed my own digital images, like multiple of them, then put them on to sell, which, yes, I can't remember. It's complicated. And then I just gave up, just didn't do anything with it. I moved on to the next thing.
I have so many things like that where I get really enthusiastic, promise people the world,
overcommit?
Yeah,
overcommit,
classic.
yes, and then do nothing about it and then feel so guilty.
What do you do?
Unachievable goals.
What do you do then when the people are like chasing you?
I've got better at just saying, I'll go yes, and then I'll go, actually, no.
I just
And then
avoid.
it's a very flat no, which
boundary.
comes as a shock. But it will always be yes, overcommitting first rather than just saying no to begin with.
What about do you order clothes online? Then what if you don't like it? Do you have like, does it take ages to return them?
Takes forever to return them. There's
just don't
quite a
return
few
them.
boxes in my son's bedroom because he's not at home because he's in the Royal Navy, so he's away a lot, doesn't come home very much. So there's
Your storage room.
there's quite a few boxes waiting to go back.
So fun, isn't it? The actual process of ordering them, but we don't get
Yeah.
anything from the process of returning them, so that just doesn't
Yeah.
get done.
It's like my playlist on Spotify is over like 250 hours long. I only have one playlist and everyone's like, you're a psycho. You are. I'm like, no, it's just, I know where everything is on my playlist. I know exactly where each song is. So I was like, that's so much easier.
What about reusable shopping bags when you go to the supermarket? Do you remember to take those with you?
Nope.
I didn't, but I'm quite good now. I keep them in the car, which I think makes it a lot easier.
Someone told me that tip, actually. Keep them in the car. But then you got to remember to take them from the
boot.
kitchen
Yeah,
to
to the car.
So when they run
Yeah.
out, you're in the same problem.
But if you just but then often they'll be in the car and I won't take them out of the car and I get to the
yeah.
till and then I get another reusable bag.
I often like consider it, but because like my foot's out the door, I'm like, no, I'll just literally carry everything.
What about unread emails?
I actually marked them all red recently, but
That must take ages. Or can you do that
yeah,
one
you can
button?
do that one button.
Can you?
Yeah. So I've got,
So just rather than dealing with them, just swipe them all as read.
yeah, I just go like this and I click mark as red. I have like 799 unread.
That's a good tip. If it overwhelms you, just kind of essentially put it in the bin.
Yeah,
Bit of it,
exactly.
yeah.
I did that with my photos as well.
I do that in my flat. It's quite a toxic trait. Even if something's quite expensive, if there's so much clutter on my side, even if it's some stuff that's worth quite a lot of money, just overwhelming me, it's going in the bin.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm like that too.